Pretty Girl Club, welcome back to the Decentering Men series. One of the pretty girls in the Patreon asked me to debunk some of these red pill talking points. I thought that would be a very fun video to do. And the red pill guys, they contradict themselves so much. For example, one of their talking points is women only want high status men. And then they'll say, oh, wait, no, but actually women like Tyrones and bad boys and jailbirds and men with no money. So it's like, sir, which one is it? Do the women like the high status men or do we like broke men? Which one? Pick a struggle. And they will tell men to just get a good job, get some money and get some muscles. I've noticed that the red pill, they seem to overemphasize money and muscles. Those seem to be kind of the top two commandments of the red pill space. So just so you know, ladies, if you meet a man in real life who overemphasizes money and muscles, he is most likely a red pill man. But they'll tell these guys, oh, just get some money and get some muscles, and then the women will come flocking. That's completely false. That's another BS talking point from the red pill space, because having money and muscles, that doesn't make women just automatically chase after you. The red pill sets men up to only be able to attract anxiously attached women, because they'll tell these men, oh, well, just get some status, grow your Instagram, and then like women will start DMing you, and then just choose from whatever women are in your DMs. And then it's like, okay, but do you really want a woman who chases after men in their DMs? Do you really want a woman who is simping over every man on Instagram? So it's hilarious because I see the red pill guys talking shit about simps, but then they want to attract the female version of a simp, aka like a pick-me type of woman. So then these guys will start dating these female simps, and then they'll get mad when these same women cheat on them. And it's like, well, yeah, you chose a woman who's desperate for male attention and chases after random men and like approaches men first and then asks men on the dates, and then she pays to get the man's attention. So what do you expect? Why are you so shocked when that woman behaves like an anxiously attached woman? Sir, if she's thirsting over you on Instagram, if she's thirsting over you in the dating apps, if she's over eager for your attention, of course she's going to be over eager for other men's attention. So I think that's a flaw with the red pill space. They teach men, oh, don't chase after women, only go after the women that chase after you. And then that just leaves them with the most dusty women in the dating pool. And so another phenomenon I've seen in real life is a lot of the men who promote these red pill talking points, they either never had a girlfriend or never will have a girlfriend, because, most women won't tolerate their bullshit. They either won't have anyone, or they'll end up getting with these belugas or these women who are like bad built, these women who are, their face card declines, or something is very embarrassing about these women. Has anybody else noticed that? Like, I've never seen a red pill guy, both on or off the internet, who's able to attract and keep an actual woman who's on his level. They talk so much about status and muscles or whatever. And it's like, okay, so you guys are the ones talking about dating marketplace value and how apparently you're supposed to get someone who's your equal, right? Well, why is it that none of these red pill men can ever get their equal? Sir, you have 10K followers on IG. Why can't you get a woman who has 10K followers on IG? Sir, you're in shape. You have money. Why is it that you can't get a woman who's in shape and has money? So a lot of their talking points, they're not applicable in real life. I feel like a lot of their talking points are just an emotional coping mechanism for men who feel rejected. So these are a lot of men, and just watch their content. Go and watch Myron's content, and you'll hear him tell his story about how he was bullied and, he never got chosen. Like, go and watch these guys, and you'll hear them talk about how many times they've been rejected by beautiful women. I've noticed a lot of them hate beautiful women because when you're beautiful, you remind them of the rejection that they faced when they were younger. So a lot of their talking points are almost like this revenge of the nerds type of thing, or it's like this revenge of the incels type of content. So it's very similar to some of the colorism content or the divestment content where they're romanticizing white men. A lot of red pill guys, they seem to romanticize desperate women. They romanticize what having muscles or money will bring them. So that's how you know that a lot of the men that follow them do tend to be broke, Because anybody who actually has money, or anybody, like in my case, having grown up in a suburban background, having been around people who had money or whatever, we all know that you don't just have money and muscles and then women just come out of nowhere. All these supermodels just pop up out of nowhere and then they just start flocking over you and then everything's perfect. All your relationship problems are solved. We all know that that's not the case. Rich people get divorces just like anybody else. People with money get divorces, have relationship problems. And another flaw that I see with some of their talking points is they will talk so much about how they don't want a gold digger, but then they overemphasize finances. So it's like, sir, if you're leading with finances and then you have this terrible personality and you're not attractive, well, yeah, what else are these women going to have to even be with you over? Like, what do you bring to the table? It's only money. So the red pill emphasizes just bringing money to the table for the most part, and then they get mad when women just want their money. Oh, and another one of their talking points is that men age better than women. So when you're a man, your value goes up as you get older because, you got all this money now. And it's like, okay, sir, are you forgetting that women, we still have eyes? So no, we're not looking past the beer belly, especially not on my channel. I never will promote that. Maybe the ugly women can do that. But I don't promote the pretty girl club settling for these unattractive, disgusting men and then settling for bad sex with these men. So a lot of red pill guys, they'll make this argument that, oh, if you just get money, then you don't have to be attractive. You can just look like whatever. Your face could be bad. You don't have a good face card. Maybe you have a weird head shape. You have a giant forehead, or you have like a very small head or something. You look creepy, but it's all good because you have money. Or they'll say, you have muscles and money. And it's like, women still know when you're a butterface. You know how they call women butterfaces? Okay, that's still a thing for men as well. So there will always be women who won't settle for a butterface. And I'm one of them, by the way. So it's like, no, just because you have money, that doesn't cancel out a bad face card. So I think that a lot of red pill men, they promote this talking point that money will solve all your problems and muscles will solve all your problems because that's all women want. That's all they care about is money and muscles. They forget the fact that women are not a monolith. So we're not a monolith. There are always going to be women who do promote that the most, but women are decentering men more than ever before. Even the women who don't want to decenter men will have to decenter men. So it's like, you can call my talking points extreme as much as you want, but my talking points will still stand, whether you support my YouTube channel or not. So, you don't have to decenter men, but that's fine. You're just going to suffer, though. You're going to suffer, and you're going to see that I'm right as time goes on. And so I think that red pill, it seems to kind of feed a lot of these men like this fantasy. Oh, well, all these women are just going to come chasing after you. That's also false, because most of the time, if a man has money or muscles, you could have the best qualities in the world, but nobody ever knows if you never leave the house. So again, they're not realizing that most of their followers are just men who are chronically online. So even if a man is a perfect Prince Charming, most women won't even know he exists because men on average tend to be more antisocial. They tend to view other men as competition. In fact, that's what the red pill promotes. Red pill promotes competition amongst men. And so, most men, they don't have a community of other men. They don't have like a healthy friend group or anything like that. So even if he does achieve all of this stuff, nobody will ever see it. He's not really going to be out socializing. And so that's another flaw within the red pill space. It's de-emphasizing social skills. So it's just this mindset of, oh, just exist. Just have muscles and money and just exist. And then the women will come flocking. All your relationship problems will be solved. And that's false. We know that that's false because look at NFL players, look at rappers. All their relationship problems are not solved. They're still getting all their money taken by the baby mamas or the women who are, quote unquote gold diggers that they're trying to avoid. So my question for the red pill guys is, where are the examples? Where are all these examples of success? Because most of the men who are the leaders in those spaces, they weren't even successful with what they were preaching about. Kevin Samuels was single. He was not in a relationship. He was rumored to be bisexual or, a part of the LGBT community. You got Myron, who's also rumored to be a part of the LGBT community as well. So it's like you've got all these people trying to give heterosexual dating advice or trying to promote themselves as if they're like some sort of relationship expert, and they don't even have examples in their own lives. They don't have success stories of their followers having these good, amazing relationships. Okay, another thing that I've noticed too is they tend to promote polyamory. They promote like polyamory and like non monogamy. So, most people who are like on dating apps and stuff like that, most of them are actually looking for some sort of monogamy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on there. And dating apps are majority men, right? So these men who are watching these channels, these tend to be men who are very codependent. You guys know my talking point on this. Men want women more than women want men, and men tend to also want romantic relationships more than women. So even though there's a stereotype that they don't, no, they actually do want relationships because they're more codependent on average, you know. So being in a relationship for a man is going to be more valuable to him because, like I said, most men are isolated anyway. So they're not really seeking, and they can't really even handle polyamory and polygamy and all that. Most men, they don't have the social skills for that. They don't have the money for that, and they themselves don't like it. And I know that some of them don't like it because why is it that when the woman says that she wants to be polyamorous, then all of a sudden it's a problem? So that tells me that the whole polyamory thing is also just another source of seeking validation. It's more so you got these men in the red pill space who are bragging about getting female validation. And by the way, they're very female centered. And it's hilarious because I'll hear people say, oh, well, men have decentered you, Exoticals United. That's why you're making this content. No, actually, men on average are very female centered. They're very female centered. They're obsessed with our bodies. They're obsessed with writing laws to control what we do with our bodies. They're obsessed with trying to make divorce illegal because they're so women centered. They have created a booming corn industry. They have created a booming OF economy. So, actually, no. As a matter of fact, name an example of a man who has decentered women completely. I would love to see that. For all the people who say, oh, well, you're just mad because men decentered you. Okay, who are these men? What are their names? Name examples of these men who are decentering women on average. They're not. Society worships beauty. Our society worships women. And that's why female privilege exists. So the average man can't and won't ever be able to decenter me. And that's why I have no problem. You know, that's why I feel like we shouldn't be afraid to decenter men because regardless, they're going to center us. Men are so female centered that they will grape people, they will assault people, they will harass people, they will stalk us. They will pretend to be us online so they can get into women's spaces. Like I've had men try to pretend to be women so they could get into my Patreon and my Discord. That's how women centered men are. Men won't even go to the gym if it's an all men's gym. Notice how they have all women's gyms that are successful. Name one successful gym that is only for men. I don't see that because most men don't even want to be around other men. So this whole talking point of, oh, well, men have decentered you. Well, they'll never be able to fully decenter women. They won't because a lot of them lack discipline in general. And then a lot of them are too isolated to fully decenter women. Most men in our society are currently depending on a woman, whether it's for sexual gratification or emotional validation or for paying 50% of the bills. And even if he doesn't have a girlfriend or wife, he's probably depending on his mother in some way or his sister. Or when he gets old, he's going to depend on female nurses. Because remember, nursing is a female dominated field. So decenter women where? Oh, well, they've just decentered you. No, they haven't. And the entire red pill space in particular, it's a lot of men who are extremely female centered, or they use women to hide their own sexualities. You know, they hide behind hetero relationships to hide the fact that they're LGBT. You know, so that's another thing that I see going on in a lot of red pill spaces. So I think a lot of men can be very gullible, especially men who don't have strong masculine figures in their lives, you know, men who didn't have father figures. It seemed like a lot of them looked up to Kevin Samuels. That's why they called him their father or their godfather. You know, it's fatherless men. It's, like I said, a lot of men are emotional orphans. They have a bad relationship with their mother. Their mother was a quote unquote single baby mama. All this shit they talked about women, oh, well, she's just a single baby mama. She has multiple baby daddies. No, that was his mom. He's literally talking about his own mom when he writes those comments. So a lot of those types of men, they come from these dysfunctional families. They're emotional orphans. They didn't have any positive femininity in their lives, and they also didn't have positive masculinity. So they seek a bisexual man who has both feminine and masculine traits. So like I said, some good examples would be like Kevin Samuels or like Myron. So these are kind of like these LGBT leaning types, or like Clavicular, who's another one where he promotes men getting plastic surgeries and wearing makeup and stuff. I think he himself either does cosmetic enhancements or he has talked about wanting some cosmetic enhancements. So they're kind of promoting and following after these like bisexual or feminine adjacent men, kind of these gender fluid men. So that's what I would call the red pill. I feel like it's actually a very gender fluid type of movement. You got these men who are secretly feminine, or maybe they embrace their femininity. So they got both sides. They're masculine presenting, but then their behaviors and kind of like the way that they lean or like their sexuality or whatever, they prefer other men. So that's fine. I'm not against the LGBT community. I just feel like the LGBT community is not going to be as knowledgeable, and they're not going to probably have as much experience in heterosexual relationships. So that's another way that I feel the red pill space is kind of like debunked. And I feel like that's another reason why it kind of is falling off. Number 4, most of the red pill creators themselves can't even get along. So they're promoting, oh, we're empowering men, we're doing all this positive stuff. But then whenever you go and look at their live streams and stuff, there's always one guy fighting against the other guy, and then one guy's making fun of another red pill guy because his girlfriend cheated on him or something like that. So it's like, are you really empowering other men? Because you're telling men that they have to compete because the woman has too many options now with social media. So you're telling these men that they have to compete with all the other 3 billion men in this world. And then you claim to be empowering men and building male communities, but then the leaders of those communities can't get along. They can't collaborate long term. They'll randomly start beefing and literally promoting violence against each other, or like threatening to unalive each other, all because of some YouTube videos. Okay, number 6 is the whole Chad talking point. They're obsessed with this invisible character that they created in their heads named Chad. So again, like, that's why I'm like, okay, are you LGBT? Because why are you obsessing over what other men are doing with their dicks? And then, you created this invisible Barbie character in your head. You created this Ken doll in your head named Chad. So whatever this invisible Chad is, you're constantly comparing yourself to him. You're counting how many bodies this quote unquote Chad has. Oh, well, how many times did Chad sleep with her? Well, how many girls does Chad get? Well, he had sex with her. How many times? How old was he when he lost his virginity? So it's like they have this obsession with other men's D's and what other men are doing with their bodies. So like I said, it is a very LGBT adjacent community. That's how I view it. But then their talking points on Chad fall through. I've noticed that their hierarchy thinking kind of gets the best of them. And that's very typical amongst men. They struggle very badly with hierarchy thinking, and that it creates more insecurities for them. So my question is, who is this Chad, and who decides who the Chad is? And is beauty, when it comes to male pretty privilege or like handsome privilege, which is what they say that this Chad is, it's supposed to be this kind of like a pretty privileged man. Okay, so is beauty subjective or objective? Because I've noticed that in the red pill space, they tend to follow this talking point that beauty is completely objective and that beauty can be measured on a scale. So you'll see a lot of red pill people following channels like Quove Studio. I can't remember the names of those AI channels where it's like they rate people's faces and then they say, oh, your face is unsymmetrical. So all of like the golden ratio, they're obsessed with the golden ratio, that was created by obviously European people. So what standard of beauty do you think they're more likely to follow? Obviously, it's going to be more of a Western European standard of beauty. So then that obviously would put black men at the bottom of the red pill space. So it's funny because, on the one hand, they're claiming that they're building men up, but in reality, they're actually putting men down, specifically men of color, or maybe even shorter men. I've noticed that shorter men's social status and collective image has actually declined ever since the red pill space came about. Same thing with men of color, especially black men in particular. Dark skinned, unambiguous black men's social status and collective image has declined due to the rise of the red pill. It just made them look even worse. I mean, I can tell you myself, as somebody who's never been with, I've never had a dark skinned, unambiguous black boyfriend that's not mixed. I've never slept with an unambiguous dark skinned black man, never had the BBC, whatever. So for me, as someone who's never experienced black men on that level, to see their red pill content, I'm like, oh my God, not only did I dodge a bullet, but wow, this actually makes them less attractive to me. So I think that a lot of them struggle with not having foresight. I've talked about this as well on my Decentering Men series. A lot of men lack foresight. So these men are creating these red pill videos, not realizing that they're actually destroying their own image and they're destroying the collective image of their counterparts. So they're destroying, the image of other short men or, men who are not quote unquote Chads. The average men who were not Chads, they were probably doing just fine before the internet. But ever since the internet came about and these men started getting podcast microphones, oh my God, not only did they wake me up, not only did they help me on my decentering men journey, but it really made me grateful that I've never come across or had the displeasure of being with men who actually believe any of these talking points. But a lot of them struggle with hierarchy thinking. They follow things like the golden ratio. They tend to follow beauty standards that favor, I would say, European features or kind of like whiteness. So for those of you who are firm believers in the golden ratio, the reason I don't promote the golden ratio on this channel is because, number one, beauty is not completely objective. It's not. Also, relationships, romantic relationships, sexual relationships, all of those are not always based on beauty either. So they kind of overemphasize beauty, I've noticed, in the red pill space. So they don't realize it, but they actually end up putting pretty privileged women and men on an even higher pedestal. So the red pill, believe it or not, that still builds my pedestal. It still builds the pedestal of attractive men or whatever. But the reason I don't promote the golden ratio is because according to the golden ratio, generally speaking, black people and Asian people would be considered the quote unquote ugliest in terms of race because Asian people's eyes would be too small and then black people's noses and lips would be too big. So obviously, I strongly disagree with that. I don't think that if somebody's whiter, then they're automatically the most beautiful. And then if they're not, then they're the least beautiful. And then I see some golden ratio subscribers, they'll be like, oh no, but some people who are a 10 out of 10 are mixed women or multiracial or whatever. So obviously I don't have a problem with that. But even when it comes to the way that they measure facial features, obviously it's going to support keener features over broader features. So it's going to support maybe more European leaning multiracial people. And then of course, the European leaning multiracials would also be beneath the fully European people with similar facial proportions. So that's another reason that I don't support it. Also, let's look at the guy who created it. Obviously the people who created it were European people and the people who supported it were Europeans. So why am I going to automatically believe the talking points of a random dead guy from hundreds of years ago whose talking points are not necessarily applicable today? Because, okay, let's say that the golden ratio is God and that we all should just bow down to the golden ratio. Okay, even so, the people who fit the golden ratio, they don't have perfect relationships either. They don't have a perfect form of status either. So it's like they're talking in theories. They're talking about things that are not necessarily applicable to real life. So that's another reason why I don't take the red pill's talking points seriously. It's because none of their talking points really apply. So even if a guy is a quote unquote Chad, for example, let's say he's perfect on the golden ratio, all of his problems are not solved. His perfect face and chiseled jawline, that doesn't solve every issue that he's ever going to have. So again, I think it's unattractive men who have this incel mindset. They think, they're kind of wondering and contemplating what it would be like to finally be attractive. So that's why you find them obsessing over other men or kind of obsessing over how attractive other people are. And by the way, this is no shade to people who do make those content. There are some people where they do image consulting and stuff. So, like I said, the whole culture of image consulting, it seems to be a spin-off of kind of like this red pill thing where it's like, oh, maybe if I could be pretty enough, if I could finally be pretty enough, if I could finally have a chiseled enough jawline, if I could finally be enough of a Chad, then my problems would be solved. So we know that that's not true. Also, when it comes to the golden ratio, why is it that when it comes to being an intellectual, we are skeptical about everything else? So you expect me to be skeptical and logical about everything else, but suddenly when it comes to the golden ratio, I'm supposed to just bow down and follow that? And also, I've seen the images of celebrities where it shows before they meet the golden ratio versus after they get plastic surgery to meet the golden ratio. And I do not believe that their faces are more attractive. So that's proof that beauty still does have subjectivity in it. So there's no such thing as, oh, you're perfectly beautiful. And then, if you're black or if you're Asian, you're just genetically fucked because, your genetics, your eyes are just too small. Or if you don't get this nose job or whatever, then you're just fucked. Plastic surgery companies want you to follow the golden ratio. You know what I mean? Like, think about who benefits from it. Think about who benefits the most from it financially. It's those YouTube channels that do it's the Quove Studios, or it's the plastic surgery studios, or the people who do the nose jobs and stuff. So all you have to do is follow the money. Anybody who has critical thinking skills knows that if you just follow the money, think about who makes the most money off of your insecurities. That's who's going to promote that talking point the most. So, of course, red pill people are going to say, oh, well, you're too ugly or whatever. Well, yeah, because they get paid to tell you how to dress. They get paid to tell you how to be a Chad. So, of course, they're, like, why would I randomly follow them? And then oftentimes the creators of these channels or the followers of the golden ratio, they themselves are not prioritizing golden ratio beauty in their everyday lives. Okay, so then it's like you're not even living what you're preaching. And I've noticed that seems to be a common theme in the red pill space. These men are not living up to the status that they promote on their channels. They don't look like a quote unquote Chad for the most part. Or if they do, like I said, they're LGBT adjacent. They're promoting wearing concealer or wearing makeup or whatever. So like I said, that is not really applicable to the heterosexual dating community. I think if a person is bi or whatever, okay, fine. Then, they should talk about that stuff with other people who are bi or gay. But to try to enforce LGBT dating standards onto a heterosexual dating market, that's another reason why I think the red pill has kind of declined as well. Okay, number 6. They have this talking point that you're supposed to get with your looks match. So if you're a man who's a quote unquote 5 out of 10 on the golden ratio scale, if you're a 5 out of 10 guy in terms of looks, you're supposed to be able to get with a 5 out of 10 woman. Okay, well, so that's another issue because now you're being a misogynist. You're basically saying because a woman's a 5 out of 10, she should be forced to be with this man who looks just like her. No! Human beings have free will. So do you see what I mean about how their talking points are not practical? You're negating the fact that a woman still has free will, sir. She doesn't have to choose you. If she's a 5 out of 10, that doesn't mean that she's forced to be with the 5 out of 10 or that's who she should pick. And even if it is who she should pick, people don't do what they should do. People do what they want to do. Welcome to Earth. So complaining on the internet is not going to suddenly make those women say, oh, you know what? I should lower my standards. I should be with a 5 out of 10. And it's funny because men will say women are hypergamous, but then they get mad when that woman is hypergamous. You get mad when she's hypergamous in terms of looks, when you don't have the looks. They get mad when she's hypergamous in terms of money, when he doesn't have the money. And also, when it comes to the whole looks matching thing, women are not a monolith, so different women have different standards. Some women, they date primarily, some women prioritize looks more. Like in my case, I'm not dating an ugly ass guy. I don't do that. I'm not doing that. I don't care if you're a trillionaire. If I'm disgusted by how you look, I'm not interested. So, there are some women who are like me who feel like you can't just be ugly. You can't have money to cancel out the way your face looks. There's no bank account to cancel out your face unless you're getting plastic surgery, which, once again, LGBT adjacent. Wearing makeup and concealer and, getting a jaw surgery, getting lip fillers. Like, I've never seen that amongst straight men. I've only ever seen men talk about that in the YouTube looks maxing space. And like I said, it's literally LGBT adjacent. How many straight women do you know who want a guy with lip filler? Oh, well, I'm just trying to be a Chad, bro. I'm just trying to balance out my face according to the golden ratio, man. I'm just trying to go from a 4 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10. Okay, also, men exposed their fear of being cheated on. So they are constantly talking about how women are cheaters and, a lot of us are secretly daydreaming and fantasizing about Chad. That's so funny how the tables have turned. Men used to love cheating culture back in the 90s. A lot of the music to this day actually still promotes cheating. A lot of men, even in the red pill space to this day, promote having a side chick or whatever. So do you see this hypocrisy and this double standard? So it's okay if a man has a side chick. It's okay if a man is poly or not monogamous, solo poly, etc. But if a woman does it, oh, she needs to be burned at the stake. She's a low quality woman. So it's like you're upholding different standards for women than you are for men, but then you're also preaching that people should be with their match, right? They should be with their equal. So looks match, and you're promoting that you guys want a woman of integrity, a woman who's loyal, etc. But then you yourself are not loyal. And then I also hear men saying, oh, don't date women who are broke, but then those men themselves are broke. So that's another reason why I feel like a lot of red pill men, they fail in real life. So like I said, it's really just one big circle jerk. It's one big emotional coping mechanism. It just helps men to soothe their loneliness. And speaking of that, this whole male loneliness epidemic. Okay, who caused the male loneliness epidemic? Who created that? Sounds like that's men's fault for being over competitive with other men and for teaching men to be antisocial by nature, because you're training these men in your red pill videos. You're saying things like, oh, nobody's going to be there for you as a man. You're just a lone wolf as a man. Okay, so you got all these lone wolves who are trying to dominate and be the quote unquote alpha. So once again, they're promoting hierarchy thinking. You got to compete to be the alpha, right? There can only be one alpha male. So they've developed a hyper competitive culture, both inside and outside of the red pill space. This goes beyond just the whole red pill thing, just in general. They've created a hyper competitive culture, and then they get upset when men in real life don't have any male friends and don't have any social skills and can't get a girlfriend. And then they're lonely. And then they somehow blame women for the male loneliness epidemic. Do you see that woman-centered mindset? Oh, well, Exoticals United, men have decentered you. No, actually, men have centered women, especially us over here in the Pretty Girl Club. They have centered us so much so to the point where if we don't give them attention, it's literally a depression trigger, according to their own talking points. If us pretty girls don't give these men attention, it is a depression trigger. And so now you got a whole industry of pretty women giving men attention, called the X-work industry, or escorts, etc., sugar babies, etc. Now they've created an entire economy because they're so lonely. So the way that they solve their loneliness epidemic is by, pay for play. And that's another thing as well in the red pill space. They hide behind healthy relationships, or they try to make it like they promote healthy relationships. I've noticed that some of them are actually Christian adjacent as well, or they're adjacent to different religions and stuff. So they try to pretend like, oh no, we're just promoting healthy relationships. No, in reality, a lot of them do pay for play. And the red pill space also fearmongers men as well, because, it tells these men, oh, no matter who she is, the prettier she is, the bigger her ego is, or these women who are 6s out of 10s, they have really big egos. So it's funny because they'll be like, oh, the prettier she is, the bigger ego she has. You need to get a woman who's humble. Okay, so that explains why most of them end up with ugly women. Or the women who are quote unquote fat. A lot of them talk so much shit about fat women, and that's who a lot of them end up with, especially in real life. Comment down below if you know of a red pill guy in real life, or a guy who watches that type of content who ended up with an unattractive woman, or an ugly woman, or a baby mama. All the women that they talk the most shit about, or black women, dark skin, ratchet, etc., the women they talk the most shit about, those are the women they're going to end up with in real life. Comment down below if you've ever witnessed this in real life. I've talked about this on the Patreon several times, how I've seen men in real life, some of them will promote these red pill talking points, and then when you look at who they end up with, because nobody with actual self-esteem will settle for them. So when you see who they end up with, it's somebody that's like repulsive. According to their own talking points, it'll be someone repulsive. The exact opposite of whatever he was fantasizing about. Oh, I'm going to end up with a girl who has real hair, ends up with a wig warrior. Oh, I'm going to end up with somebody who's skinny, ends up with a beluga. Oh, I want a Latina. I want Latinas. I'm about to go over to Vietnam. I'm going to Thailand. Ends up with Keisha, who works at Walmart. Okay, I think I'm on number 7. They have this talking point where it's like women's egos are inflated because we have more dating options than ever because of dating apps and social media. You know, the world has become globalized. So because of being able to fly out to other cities and stuff, the dating market is skewed in women's favor. And it's like, okay, so you're revealing that you were a Dusty then. You're basically admitting that the only reason women ever liked you is because they didn't have any other options. So you're admitting that you ain't shit, basically. You don't bring anything to the table. All this talk about who brings what to the table, but then you're complaining that men from other cities bring more to the table than you. NFL players bring more to the table than you. White men, tall men, chads, etc. all bring more to the table than you. Okay, so if you're a loser, just say it. Because whenever they say that talking point, they're admitting the only way that I would be a high value man is if social media doesn't exist, if airplanes didn't exist, if she was trapped in this city, she could never travel, if she could never have access to anybody attractive, and if she never sees men more attractive than me, then that's the only way I have value. Okay, so then you're admitting you're a loser then. And that's how I know that a lot of men have only been able to get women through domination and subjugation. Because even if you look back during the 1950s and stuff, when marriage was more prominent, and then, you know, you'll actually see men saying, oh, I want to go back to that time. I want to go back to the 1950s or whatever. And it's like, yeah, of course you want to go back to a time where women couldn't open bank accounts. Because that's the only way you had power. And it's like, sir, she doesn't even like you. She likes your bank account. So that's another issue. I noticed that's probably one of the most prevalent issues in the red pill space. You know, they get so mad at gold diggers, but then if a man does become rich, that's all they can attract is a gold digger or somebody who just wants a green card to get in America, etc. And that leads me to my next point. This fantasy talking point of how as a man, you're just going to get older, you're going to have more money and more to offer. That's not how capitalism works, sir. Capitalism is not set up for every man to be a millionaire. So you're telling me that out of your 750,000 followers, that all 750K of these Dusties, they're all just going to become millionaires by 40. They're all just going to make 6 figures working in the ghettos of North Carolina. No, that's not how our economy works. Capitalism is not set up for everybody to become millionaires or for everybody to become rich. And that's another thing. They never define what they consider rich. 6 figures is not rich, and especially depending on what city you live in. 6 figures is middle class, by the way. And the way that capitalism is set up, the majority of people under capitalism are going to be working class or they're going to be middle to lower middle class. Not to mention the fact that men and little boys are behind in education. We all know that, generally speaking, more educated people do tend to make money. They make more money over the course of their lifetime. Statistics show that. So men on average tend to be the less educated gender, or currently they are the least educated. And suddenly you want to make this content lying and saying, oh no, but you guys are all just going to be millionaires and just buy my course and learn how to trade. And then like all of you guys are going to be millionaires and then just, invest in crypto and then you're all going to be millionaires. No, those people don't understand economics and they don't understand capitalism. It sounds like they're just trying to make money off their content. And hey, I'm not against making money off content, but I just think that that's another talking point that is easily debunkable. I can easily debunk that. Oh, your value is just going to go up as you age because you're just going to get so much more money. Do you know how credit card companies work? Have you ever owned a credit card? That is definitely not how credit card companies work. Oh, well, you just get the credit card and then there's no interest and then you're easily able to pay off all your debts and then you're just going to get this mortgage and then never have to pay taxes. No. Capitalism is set up so that people can't become rich. So even if a man is trying to level up, he's paying for something somewhere and he's going to have to come out of pocket, whether it's for paying off his credit card debt, paying off his student loans, if he tries to get married or have a child, paying for that child that he just birthed, or paying for a divorce court. If he owns a business, companies get sued all the time. He's going to have to deal with lawsuits. He has to pay for insurance for his house, maybe for his business, maybe for any assets he has. Don't even get me started on healthcare. Healthcare costs are high, and men on average tend to be extremely unhealthy. The average person in the United States is not lean. The average person in the US is overweight. So most of these men are going down the path to where they're going to have high medical bills once they get older anyway. So any wealth that they acquire will most likely be eaten up by medical bills. Oh, well, he can just buy a house and then the value on the house is going to go up. Again, not how capitalism works. The only people who say that are people who have probably never purchased a house, or maybe they've never invested in a property. That's not how that works. You don't just invest in something and then it just goes up and you just become a millionaire. If it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. If all you had to do is buy a little bit of crypto, or, just purchase a random house anywhere in the country and then you became a millionaire tomorrow, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. No, the way that the economy works is that markets go up and down. So there's no such thing as, oh, your value is just going to increase with age. No, it's not. It's most likely, it's statistically not going to. It's going to go up and down because that's just how life works. You have ups and downs. You have different bills, different things happen. You can't control what's going to happen to you medically. You can't time the market. You can't predict what's going to happen. And so what I've noticed is a lot of these red pill guys, they start to realize that. So then they start to go into a lot of credit card debt. And they don't tend to talk about this, but I've just noticed it with a lot of men in general, like in real life. They'll know that they're dusty. They know that they have no status. They know that they have no education to fall back on either. So then they'll just start racking up credit card debt so they can have the nice car. They'll go to these buy here, pay here lots, or they have this terrible interest rate on their car. They'll buy these cars that are putting them 30, 40, 50,000 in debt. And then they're using that as kind of like their status symbol. So I've noticed in the red pill, a lot of the followers of that space, they tend to resort to faking their wealth because they can't actually get the real wealth. Because again, that's not how capitalism is set up. Everybody can't be billionaires and trillionaires. And then I hear red pill guys, just kind of coming off as if they have all the answers. Anytime a content creator acts like they have all the answers, that's a red flag. That's a huge red flag. If you're watching any content creators and you don't know any of their flaws, that's another huge red flag. If they never talk about any of their flaws, they're never transparent, they never show you any of the bad side, they only tell you the good, so everything in their life is just always positive all the time, and then they're trying to sell you something, yeah, that's a huge red flag. And so a lot of the people who follow red pill, they do tend to be vulnerable to grifters. I mean, like I said, people who are the poorest, people who have the lowest status in society, they do tend to be the most vulnerable to different types of grifters. So I've seen that both with men and women who are either in the red pill space or adjacent to the red pill space. You'll see these insecure women calling into these shows. And I notice it is mostly unambiguous dark-skinned black women because on average, they do tend to have the most desirability anxiety, according to their own talking points. So you'll have them calling into these shows saying, oh, am I pretty enough? What should I wear on this date? I'm going on this date with this guy. Meanwhile, they're going on a date with some dusty Jamaican guy or something. But then, of course, the creator doesn't want to say that. So there's no vetting. The person just wants to make their money. So I think that's another issue as well. The economy is not set up for everybody to be a winner. And then they'll be like, oh, just start your own business. And I agree. I mean, I support people starting their own businesses, but I also think with the red pill space in particular, it's very set up kind of like this multi-level marketing thing where you've got a few big people at the top, you got a couple of big channels at the top, and then the rest of them are really struggling, or, the guys are selling these courses on trading and crypto and stuff. And it's like, okay, if all these men were truly just raising their value as they got older, then they'd already be crypto millionaires by now. They don't have to buy your course or whatever. And then I feel like a lot of them also get into pimp culture, or they're kind of like adjacent to pimps because they will purchase these OF agencies for Schmoly fans. And so they're selling these women's Schmoly fans. And it's like, okay, not only does that go against all of your talking points, because those are the exact types of women that you look down upon, right? The whores and all that. So that goes against your talking points. But because most of you are broke, you have to sell a woman's image in order for you to make money. So if that's not female centered, I don't know what is. So this talking point where it's like, oh, well, men have just decentered you. No, they haven't. They're literally paying their bills by selling the schmonly fans of women who look like me. So there's that. But also, let's say that a guy watches Red Pill. Let's say that he is the anomaly. Let's say that he's the exception and he becomes rich. He's like a millionaire. He's got all the muscles or whatever. Because they have either had a lot of rejection trauma from women or because they've watched so much negative and fear mongering types of content, by the time that man gets his money, he's not going to want to share that money with anyone anyway. Dating costs money, right? Taking people on dates, that costs money. Pay for play costs money. Having a girlfriend that's going to cost money. So most of those guys, even if they do end up getting money, they become very stingy and they're like, I don't want to share my money with anyone. And then because they don't have any social skills, they end up just being alone. So it feeds into that male loneliness epidemic. It makes it even worse. But another issue with them is oftentimes the men who are watching this content, these men don't actually know what they want. It's like, okay, do you want women? Do you want other men? Do you want a relationship? Do you want a casual friends with benefits? Do you want a wife? Do you want a family? So I think that's another issue too. Because if you don't even know what you want, you're going to have a hard time getting it. So I think a lot of men are also not self-aware because some of the red pill guys, they actually promote being a gigolo or being a hoe. You know, you have men bragging on there saying, oh, a woman slid into my DMs. Okay, that's extremely female-centered. He's he's a pick-me. He's a simp. It's funny how they're constantly accusing other men of being simps. It's like, sir, you're the ultimate simp. You're bragging about a low-quality, anxiously attached woman chasing after you in the DMs. Meanwhile, that's a woman's everyday life. I do not like it when random, strange, unattractive men try to DM me and stuff. So it's like you got men out here on these red pill channels bragging about being catcalled by women. They're bragging about being essayed by women. They're bragging about sleeping with random women that they don't know, having one night stands, etc. So bragging about basically being a gigolo or being community dick. Okay, so if that's not women centered, I don't know what is. So who's really the pick me? Who really has the low self esteem? So no matter which way you spin it, every single type of guy, generally speaking, is going to be some sort of quote unquote simp in one way or another. He's either simping for sex, he's simping for white women, he's simping for black women, he's simping for big booties, he's simping for tall women, he's simping for short, petite women, he simps over women with no kids, he's simping for women who are richer than him, women who are older than him, women who are whiter than him, etc. So there is no escaping the simp title in my eyes. Especially for red pill guys. I just feel like they are the definition of simps. They're literally funding the entire OF economy. But another talking point they have is about female nature. So they've got all these theories on female nature, and it's like, okay, if you are admitting that females have a certain nature, then why do you get mad when I say that men have a certain nature? So why is it that only one gender within the species has this negative, toxic nature, but then the other gender within that same species suddenly is perfect and holy and righteous? So men are just the perfect, innocent ones, and then women are the evil ones. No, if you're saying that female nature is negative or bad or manipulative, then I could make the argument that male nature is the same way, because we are two sides of the same coin, are we not? I mean, we're both human beings, right? We're both from the same animal group, right? So if you're saying that women are vindictive and cheaters, etc., why is it suddenly impossible for men to be the exact same way? Another flaw in their talking points is this alpha and beta male framework. So not only are they kind of putting men into just two categories, so they have a mindset that men are the monolith, and there's just, you got the alpha males, then you got the beta males. And it's like, okay, who decides who's an alpha male or not? How many alpha males are there? What is being an alpha male based on? Is it based on looks? Is it based on money? Is it based on race? What is that based on? And then who decides who's a beta or not? And then what are the solutions for all these quote unquote beta males? Like, all the content that they make, is this supposed to be geared towards beta males? Because that's another issue as well. It's like, okay, what does that say about the self-esteem of a man who's watching that? If I'm watching content and then they're basically telling me, oh, I'm a beta female, so basically I'm the bottom of the barrel, I wouldn't watch that content. So if anything, you guys are proving yourselves to be dumbasses then, because you're basically admitting, oh, so and so content creator is the alpha and I'm just a beta male just watching him. So like I said, LGBT adjacent. LGBT adjacent. You got men basically worshiping and bowing down at the feet of this supposed alpha male. Yet when you ask them collectively, what is an alpha male, they can't give you a set standard. Every guy has a different answer. Every channel has a different definition. And another one of their flaws is this talking point that all of us women are chasing after the same guys, or 80% of women are chasing after the top 20% of men. That's not true, because if it really were true, then you wouldn't hear men complaining. You wouldn't hear NFL, NBA players, etc. You wouldn't hear those type of men complaining. Also, those men would never experience rejection, right? Because all of us want them, right? They would never experience rejection. They'd never have anyone tell them no, right? So Chris Brown wouldn't have any SA accusations because all those women wanted it, right? They would have all consented, correct? If Chris Brown is supposed to be, kind of like one of the guys that everybody's chasing after, then he would have no allegations. Diddy would have had no allegations then, because all the women are chasing after the top 20% of men in terms of money or looks or status. So then there would be no SA charges because, those women all wanted it. They'd be trying to SA him. He'd be the one charging them. So that's how I know that talking point is BS. Because there's no such thing as a human on this earth who has never experienced any sort of rejection. So again, it's this incel fantasy. Oh, these chads or these rich men. These are men who are so far removed. These are basically low status men at the bottom of society. They're so far removed from NFL players, rich guys, attractive men, whatever. So maybe these men come from generations of poverty. They come from generations of ugly men. And so they have all this fantasy and theory and lore about what it's like to be attractive, what it's like to be higher up in the dating market. They've got all these theories. Why is it that none of the red pill men, name one actual red pill man who is like really fine, he's really hot, he's got good standards, morals, that you would actually want to date as a viewer, like as a woman? Why don't we see that? Why is it always these like dusty, crusty looking uncles, super old men? They got beer bellies and shit. Some of them don't even have all their teeth. Bad haircuts. They got the man buns and stuff. Why is it always them with the dangly earrings and double nose piercings? Oh, and something else I hear them talk about is this concept of genuine attraction. Like, oh, she doesn't have genuine desire for you because you don't have muscles or whatever. And it's like, okay, if a woman only likes you because of your money, she also doesn't have genuine desire for your appearance. She doesn't have genuine desire for your looks. So the red pill guys, you're never getting the genuine desire yourself. You're over here making fun of other people like, oh, your woman doesn't really want you, ha ha ha. You don't have genuine desire. And it's like, sir, you don't have genuine desire. That woman desires a green card. All the passport bros and shit, it's like she genuinely desires to be in America. That's it. She doesn't desire to stay with you. She doesn't think you're handsome. She doesn't think you have such a sparkling personality and you're such a great person and she loves being around you. So they're actually shutting themselves off to this genuine desire that they claim to be seeking. And a lot of them have different definitions of what genuine desire is. So some of them feel like desire is just physical, like she's physically attracted to you. And again, in that case, most of the red pill guys definitely failed that one. There's no way that you can tell me that out of the millions of people that watch Fresh and Fit, that every single one of those guys is fine. No, that's not even how humans work. That's not how society works. Everybody's not just this attractive, drop dead, gorgeous person. So most of the people watching, they've never had any woman who genuinely thinks they're hot. And then I also see them complaining about divorce. They'll be like, oh, women initiate most divorces. Okay, but I thought you guys said you don't like marriage anyway, and marriage is a trap and you don't want it. So shouldn't you guys be happy then that you're getting divorced? Shouldn't you feel free? Now you're finally free. You can live this bachelor lifestyle and be polygamous or polyamorous. So why are you so mad about the divorce if you don't really want to marry women anyway? If women are not marriage material, why would you be upset about them divorcing you? If women in general don't make good mothers, then why are you upset about the childbirth rates going down? A lot of them have so many inconsistencies, it's insane. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.